the grain. If you have flour, if it's just a little bit of a wrapping, like you said, like blintzes, right? So usually then that's enough. If you would to take only the wrap, which is made from flour, and roll it up, it would be the size of an olive, probably.
Yeah.
But in a very cheap schnitzel, maybe you wouldn't have the size of an olive of flour. And so this is oats. It's 60% oats. This is almost all oats. So for sure, the bracha afterwards is al hamichya. Now I say for sure, but it's not absolute because there is a debate. So first of all, I just was telling Michael Arya that I saw on Shabbat. I bought for my children some, not this kind, but a different kind of bar that had a badat symbol on it. Badat Saida Charedit. And it said under it, the bracha is ha'adama. We were trying to figure out, why should the bracha be ha'adama? If it's one of the 5 grains, so we're thinking maybe it's not cooked, maybe it's only roasted, and then it's, for example, if you take barley, my wife made barley soup. Beans and barley, nice. Yeah, it's nice, delicious. It's also good in shulans, for example, right? What's the bracha on barley? So same thing, like wheat, right? So if you cook it, it becomes mezonot. But if it's not cooked, if each grain stays whole, it doesn't become a mush. It doesn't really change its structure. All it is ha'adama. It's like taking a bean and cooking it up. The bracha is ha'adama on beans. So it only becomes mezonot if it's cooked and turned into something else, like the wheat. If you take a wheat berry and you eat wheat berries, you cook them up and eat them, the bracha is ha'adama. Until you turn it into flour and you make a dough out of it, so then the bracha is al hamichya, mezonot, or hamotzi. Depends if you're making bread or cake, right? So it could be that this oatmeal, this oat snack. I mean, I've always made mezonot on it and al hamichya afterwards because it's from the 5 grains and I assumed it was cooked. But now I'm thinking maybe I've been wrong. Maybe it should be ha'adama and bor nefashot afterwards. There is another problem, and this is a bigger question of oats. Some professors, academics who study the history of plants, they say that our oats, what we call oats today, is not the shibolet shu'al, which is mentioned in the Mishnah. In the times of the Mishnah, they had a different kind of grain, which they considered to be one of the 5 grains. This was not around in the ancient world. And it was like another form of wheat, essentially. Shibolet shu'al was like wheat, barley, shibolet shu'al. But it's not the oats, what we call oats. So according to them, we shouldn't be making mezonot on it at all. It's only the 5 grains of the original 5 grains. This is not the true oats from the list. And they could be right. It seems like they're right. But many poskim have said that we have a tradition, I don't know how many hundreds of years, that before these professors came around, all the rabbis assumed that what we call oats are oats. And we've been making mezonot on it for years, hundreds of years. And so just because some professor writes some study, we're not going to change our halachic practice. And so this, whatever it is, we call it oats, has the status of oats of the halacha. And therefore we continue to make the bracha borei minei mezonot, even though there is this, and like every study in the academia, it could be one day they say this way, and in a few years they'll change their mind, and they will discover some ancient form of oats that actually was there. So we don't really change the halacha, we keep with our custom. The custom is that on oats we say mezonot. Only question I still have to figure out is why this bar said Ha'adama on it, and so I have to check that. But that was just this Shabbat, a recent event that I saw. It suggested that we should make on these bars bar pri Adama. But again, if you're making bar pri Adama, then the after bracha would be bar nefashot. If you're making mezonot, the after bracha would be al michya. If you had enough of that material to make a kazait worth, right? Let's say al michya. If you have the olive size worth of the grain of the one of the 5 grains. So if you just have a cheap schnitzel, I would say mezonot because I think it's there for the taste, not just to stick it together. But afterwards, I would probably not say ala michya because I wouldn't have enough. Because inside it is all chicken and other things, but it's not very much flour. That's not enough of flour to make you obligated to say the bracha al hamichya afterwards. I just say bar nefashot, and that's it. Okay, I hope that makes things. Unless you have some pasta on the side, and then you're safe.
I don't understand what you say right now about that your wife is making the soup from the barley. And the barley, if it's not cooked, it's not considered as a mezonot.
So it's a debate. Some poskim are more careful about that. They say the barley has to be broken up and split, or become a mush, for it to become considered to be another, like a developed dish, as opposed to just some separate grains of ha'adama.
But with the fruit, we don't have that style. We don't. The fruit.
The fruit is it's when you pick it off the tree.
Tamar is tamar.
Okay, so also the standard is what grows on the ground is ha'adama. What grows on the tree is ha'etz. There's 5 special grains which, even though they grow from the ground, they can get a very special bracha if they're cooked. Because the question is, what constitutes cooking here? These barley beans, they came off the ground. They look like they were barley, and they still look like they're barley. So what makes them cooked? That's the debate. Does it have to be that they get soft and mushed, or cracked, or is the very fact that they taste better? Is that good enough? Mm-hmm. So there's a debate between the poskim.
What is the difference between roasted and...
So when you roast something...
Roasted on the oil and roasted on the air, what is... But I mean, what do you mean roasted?
Roasted means without liquid.
Without oil?
Without liquid, without any liquid.
Because oil makes it different.
Yeah, oil adds it to the cooking. It gives it a different taste. Whereas roast is without any water, without any liquid. It heats it up, but it retains its essential status as the berry that it was, or the piece of grain that it was beforehand. So maybe, but I don't know. I don't know why that said the bracha was ha'adama. Could be it's a printing error. I doubt it. But, could be. The standard is if you have a granola bar, if you have an oats bar, you make mezonot before and al-michya afterwards. Although, as I said, there is of course debate about it. Anyways, here we are talking about the laws of brachot, which is always good. We bless Hashem in the most precise way, right? We want to be able to bless Hashem, if possible, with the higher level bracha. Ha'adama, basic bracha. Ha'etz. It also grows from the ground, but it's got a tree. So we more specific. See, we thank Hashem for what grew in the ground and on the tree. Right? Ha'etz is also growing from the ground. The tree grows from the ground, but because there's a very special form of this growth that instead of just going straight out of the ground, it grows into a tree and then you get the fruit. So we have a very special bracha for it. And then the grains, we have also a special processing which we do to the fruit, and so we praise Hashem in an even more specific way. When you say to your wife, I love you, honey, you're great. It's nice. When you say to your wife, "I love you, honey. You look so beautiful today in this red dress," it's even nicer. "I love you, honey. You really. I like the taste of the way you made this food," or I like the. "I'm so proud of you how you did such a good business deal." The more specific your compliment is, the more real it is, the more quality it is, the more it's just the way you can say platitudes all day long. You can recite everything in the Siddur, but the rabbis made the Siddur and the laws, the blessings which they institute for us, to with these attention to detail, the sensitivity to all the different things we have to praise Hashem for. And so if there's something more special about the food, there's a more special bracha, if possible, if it qualifies as something which is from the 5 grains, if it's been cooked in that way, then it gets the bracha of mezonot. Otherwise, it goes back to the level of ha'adama. Ha'adama. Yes? More laws of blessings? Before we open up our prayer.
When I do the bracha on breakfast, I always have the apple and nuts, and I say, but then later I have a tamar.
Okay.
Then it's kind of like weird because I already did the bracha, not the weird, but I kind of feel like it's proper if I do the Adam. I should say because how to deal with it, because I eat the adama, then I have shehakol, there's an egg, and then I have apple with the nuts, and
nice.
Then later on the end of the breakfast I have 2 tamars.
Beautiful. Sounds delicious.
It's good. But my question is,
so if it's
here,
right.
Is it okay? Or?
Right. So if the food is on the table, or you're going to eat it, so then whatever species you make the blessing on, it covers all the other foods of that same species, of the same bracha. So if you make a bracha on the apple, borei pri ha'etz, same bracha on the date, on the tamar, so you don't have to make another bracha. If you didn't know you were going to eat it, and then someone brings it to you from another house or something, so then your mind was not on that food, so you make another borei pri ha'etz. But if it's part of your regular diet, then there is a preference that you should make the borei pri ha'etz on the fruits which are mentioned in the Torah. Apples are not mentioned in the Torah, and dates are. So there's a preference to eat the date first. But if you don't like it that way, if you want to eat the apples now and the dates later, you're allowed to. And the bracha covers both. One bracha, borei pri ha'etz, covers both. The same bracha for both. You don't make another bracha on the tamar later on. If you like to specifically have the dates for dessert, that's fine. It's okay. Put some date honey on it. Silan, it's called. Put some silan on top. It's yummy too. Yeah.
Question: if I had, like, say, a plate with the hamburger without no bun, just the meat.
Just the meat.
And they say sheko.
Niye bidvaro. Yes.
But if I have a Coca-Cola, do I also say sheko again?
So again, the same thing. If you had the food on the table and you're intending to eat it, if they have the same bracha, so one bracha covers both, the meat and the shakol.
Even if it's liquid.
Even though it's liquid and solid, doesn't matter. If the bracha covers it, the bracha covers it. Good morning, David. We've been talking about brachot. I guess people are hungry for breakfast. I don't know. They keep talking about food first thing in the morning.
Question, Rabbi.
Yeah.
It's a lot of questions about
Regarding
It's good. We eat every day. You have to know which bracha to make.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a bit confused for the Shabbat meal.
Mm.
Yeah, when we went for the family house for Shabbat, sometime after the meal, then they bring the dessert. Then they said this is a separate. It's a separate from the meal. But sometimes when they bring the dessert, they say it's included in the meal.
Yes.
So I'm a bit confused.
Good. There is debate. There are different opinions about how to treat the dessert. The bracha on dessert. Is it part of the meal, separate from the meal? The standard assumption is that the bracha that you make at the beginning of the meal, like the hamotzi lechem min haaretz, if you're talking about a Shabbat meal, or I'll have a motzi, so then that covers everything that's part of the meal. That's part of the food that you eat in order to be satisfied. So the Talmud says that dessert is not included. Dessert, you don't eat it to be satisfied. You eat it for fun. You eat it to have a little bit of sweet taste at the end. You eat it as a delicacy. But you're already full from the meal. Dessert is not considered to be part of the meal. And so the standard approach is that desserts are not included. And so you have to make a separate bracha on the dessert. However, other people say, wait, if I have a piece of cake for dessert that has, a lot of flour in it, I'm going to get full. I'm going to get fuller. My belly is going to be, it's something that gives me nourishment and gives me satisfaction. So the cake, it's not just like having a little bit of sweet. There's body to it, right? It's a lot of carbohydrates, calories. So why do you not consider that food? Some people nowadays, they have an entire meal of just cake. They eat a lot of cake. Is very filling. So some people say, when you have a dessert that's made from mezonot, from flour, don't make a bracha on the dessert. And then some people say, well, what about if you have fruit? So fruit, most people say fruit is not food. Fruit is just for sweet taste, because food, there's no carbohydrates, very few carbohydrates in the fruit. And so that's what I do. When I have fruit for dessert, I make a bracha. But if it's not fruit, what about if I have vegetables? For dessert, melon. Melon, it grows in the ground. It's not a ha'etz. So sometimes people eat melon as part of their food. So it's complicated. So there's some poskim that say you only make a bracha on ha'etz, because ha'etz is usually not food that's eaten to satisfy you, to fill your belly. It's usually eaten as a delicacy, as some kind of a extra sweet treat. Nuts, it's a bari eitz. It's the same thing. Most people don't eat nuts as a nourishing food.
But for the dessert, like
for dessert, so you would make a bari eitz. I would make a bari eitz on the dessert.
Mixed with the cranberry and a little.
Yeah, very nice. Make a bari eitz, a fruit salad. Yes, that's for dessert. So, but there is a debate about it. What's considered to be part of the meal, what's considered to be separate, and so the fact that you saw maybe in two different homes, people doing different customs, makes sense, because we have quite a dynamic and flexible system. Not all the rabbis agree about every bracha. And there are different communities that, their rabbis feel this is the way it should be done. Other rabbis feel this is the way it should be done. They're all both beautiful interpretations of our Torah, and they're both valid, and I wouldn't start throwing stones at them and tell them that they're a heretic and how can they behave like that and they don't know what they're doing. That would be bad. That would be... Definitely don't embarrass them and say, well, my rabbi said you should not make a bracha on X, Y, Z. I can assume that they asked their rabbi, and their rabbis tell them that they're following what their rabbi told them to do. Now, there is also some people that are just ignorant. Happens. We don't know. I don't know everything. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe there's things that I don't know that I'm doing wrong. So, in general, you should try to know as much as you can and do the practice that you are taught and that you learn from your Torah learning, and assume that if somebody's doing something else, there's a good reason. Usually their rabbi told them, maybe they told them otherwise, and you don't have to go on a holy war. I mean, if you'd like to have a Torah discussion, maybe it's appropriate. Maybe not when you're a guest. It might feel like they're like you're challenging them, so you have to. But in the Beit Midrash, you could have a Torah discussion for sure. That's what we're doing right now, right? We're discussing. It's perfect. But when you're a guest, maybe you wouldn't, start asking questions. Why'd you do that? You should have done it that way. It seems like a little critical, right? Yeah, not so polite. Not so polite to be critical at the table. Yeah.
So we just follow. What they do. If they don't say the blessing, then we just follow.
Well, it depends. If you have a rabbi and you know what you're supposed to do, and you've studied the topic, and your rabbi told you what to do, so then you follow your rabbi. Do it quietly, whatever you think you should be doing. If you don't know better, you can follow your host. Yeah.
I have two questions, but one is about this subject. It's because now in my family I will have a Sephard. Part of my family will be
Sfaradi. Yeah. Oh,
And,
Yofi. When's the wedding?
After the wedding.
When is the wedding?
28th of December.
Ah, okay. After Hanukkah, yeah.
Bezrat Hashem. And then,
Bezrat Hashem.
and then but already we have the guest, the future
Son-in-law.
And
Yes.
when he did the bracha for Kiddush, he drank all the wine.
Himself.
Himself. And he said,
oh, and you didn't. You wanted to have a little bit of the wine.
There's more things like that, like if some stuff. The next Shabbat, we already told him we prepare our cups.
Good.
We have been like, shall we drink all of our wine? And the stuff like that.
Different customs, yeah.
Different customs.
Yes,
now
different customs.
I'm realizing like, if I'm Ashkenazi and I'm in his house, there can be some conflict in my way of doing the things.
Yes.
Like,
yes.
For example, there's a lot of different things. And how I should do, I don't want to be critic or do something bad.
Good. Especially as father-in-law, you have to be careful not to be critical. Absolutely. It's not worth it. It's not worth it fighting over the Kiddush wine. To have good relations with your son-in-law. Remember, he's going to be having your grandchildren. Bezrat Hashem. You want to have good relationships. But sometimes you can discuss it, but it is good to know that there are different customs. And they're all kosher. Yeah. He's following his rabbis, and that's fine.
But I can do what I do.
Sure. Yeah.
And then the other
I mean, if you're in his home and you're a guest in his home, so you've asked permission. It depends, how if it's saying a bracha or not saying a bracha, that's up to you. You say it to yourself. You're not encroaching on him. But for example, you talk about hosting and kiddush. So it's quite common in Sephardi families, and really they're correct according to the halacha, that only one person makes kiddush. The head of the household, whoever it is, one person. And everybody else thinks, listens, answers amen, and they fulfill their obligation. They don't even have to drink the wine. And you fulfilled your obligation by hearing somebody else say kiddush. And this is the standard custom. It's really actually preferable according to halacha. In my family, I think I mentioned, I come from a Hasidic family from Poland. My grandparents, and my father was born in Poland, but we have the custom that all the men make kiddush, and there's many families where even if they're a guest and they're at somebody else's home, so probably the head of the household of the host, he will make his kiddush. And then he'll say to each person that wants to make kiddush, you want to make your own kiddush, you can. Wow. So I was brought up, we were a few boys, 1, 2, 3, 4 kiddushis in a row. Each boy made his own kiddush. It's good training, it's good practice. And even when they're married afterwards, so they continue to say their own kiddush. They could just have one kiddush and listen and answer amen. Everybody agrees it's kosher, it's probably even better. But the custom is, in this Hasidic world, is that everybody makes their own kiddush. It's a nice feeling. If you have a family, you have your wife, and so she listens to your kiddush, and everybody says their own kiddush. So this is a different custom. So if I were a guest at a Sephardi house, I usually would not, I would usually just, he's not expecting that. He's expecting one kiddush. And that's it. So I'm not very careful about this custom. But if I really wanted to make my own kiddush, I would have to ask permission. So I know that you're making kiddush, but my custom is that I make my own kiddush. Can I do that? And if he says yes, then you can make your own kiddush. But I wouldn't force my way. But you have to be respectful of the host. And there are different ways of practicing. Yeah.
Then you probably answer my second question, because we have a kiddush in our synagogue, because we have someone has a wedding. And
Lovely. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And then the guy who handed me a whiskey, and the Rab made the kiddush on wine.
Yeah.
And then my daughter said, you need to drink the wine because the kiddush is on the wine and you can drink the whiskey. And I was confused. I drink the wine and whiskey on the end, but
Why not have both? You should never mix drinks. But I think your daughter was incorrect.
Yeah, I was thinking too.
Because you don't have to drink the wine. You don't have to drink the wine from the person who made the kiddush, or wine at all. You don't have to drink it all. You have to hear him. Somebody has to drink a cheekful of wine, or whatever they're making kiddush on. And as long as somebody has, or a combination of a few people have drunk a cheekful, then that's considered to be a kosher kiddush, and everybody else who answered amen and who listened can eat. They fulfilled their obligation of kiddush, and now they can have whatever they want to have. They can eat. Usually, you have to have some mezonot. You have to have some semi sort of meal. And then if you want to have some whiskey, have some whiskey. You have to say shehakol on the whiskey. It's a different bracha. No. I think you have to have another whiskey. Unless you also drank some of the wine. If you drank some of the wine, and you made a bar pregafen on the wine, or somebody else made a bar pregafen, you answered amen, so then that covers all drinks. Like bread covers all foods, wine covers all drinks. So if you made bar pregafen, and then you want to take a soft drink, Coke, don't make a bracha on the Coke. But that's only if you yourself drank some of the wine. If just he drank the wine, it's kosher kiddush. But when you drink your soft drink, you have to make a shehakol, because you didn't actually partake of the wine. Very complicated.
Yeah, it's good.
Very complicated.
To be part of the kiddush with the wine, all of us, then it's covered for the whole table later.
Yeah.
It's practical.
What do you mean? It's practical to drink also?
It's practical this way that we all have a cups with the wine when we hear the kiddush, and then we.
Yeah, it's very practical. It's very practical. Yeah. Sure. Yeah, there's some people that are very careful that they want to have a little sip from the wine from the kiddush cup of the person who made the kiddush on that cup, and so he pours out from the cup a little bit into everybody else's little cups, and there is an element of something a little bit better about that, but it doesn't have to be. It's still kosher without drinking at all, and it's also kosher if you have 20 people around the table, and pouring out a little bit to each one can take too long, and it might not even be enough in the cup. And so what many times we do is we pour out, everybody has a little bit in their cup ahead of time, and then when the person makes the kiddush, he drinks from the kiddush cup, and everybody else drinks from the little cups that they have next to them, without any of the pouring into from the one cup of kiddush. It's second best, but it's still fine. It's kosher. In yeshiva, that's what you do. Nobody gets a little bit from the cup of kiddush, but you'll probably see some people go over and try to get a little bit from the original kiddush cup. Not an obligation, but there is an element of something better about that. But it can be very impractical, and therefore it's not obligatory. You don't, as I said, you don't have to drink it all. If you do want to drink a little bit, so you put a little bit in your own cup. It's fine. When you hear the bracha, Borei Pregafen, Amen. You drink your own. And then you can have as much whiskey as you want without any shehakol afterwards. Yeah, go ahead.
The cup of the kiddush need to have 21 millimeters?
No, it has to. Well, there's a debate exactly how to translate the measurements from the Talmud till today.
How much I need to drink as I'm doing?
So the measurements in the Talmud, there's standard, and then of course there's other opinions. There are many other opinions, but the standard is there's the word kos.
Kos. It will be.
So that's 20. That's 6, and that's 60. Equals 86 milliliters. That's the standard of what constitutes a revi'it. That's been the opinion of Rabbi Chaim Nai for about 150 years or so. But there are other calculations. It's not so big. That's not so big. It's like, 100 milliliters, 86 milliliters, less than 100 milliliters. But other people say, no, the more precise measurement is closer to 76 or 73 milliliters. There's different opinions about how to calculate it. And then, of course, the Chazon Ish, famously, the great scholar from Bnei Brak, he had a whole different set of calculations. And according to him, it's almost double. It's like 120 milliliters. I can't remember the exact number right now. But so some people have a much bigger Kiddush cup because of the Chazon Ish. But the standard approach is that if you have 86 milliliters, that constitutes what the Talmud calls a revi'it halog, a quarter of a log. A log was the measurement of the day. It's like liter. So a quarter of a liter, quarter of a log is 86 milliliters. But you don't have to drink it all. That's how big the cup has to be. The cup has to hold a revi'it, 86 milliliters. My cup holds just, for many, many years, I bought a special cup because I wanted to teach my children that we practice the halacha according to this opinion, and we don't have to go crazy. Some people want to be extra stringent, and so they buy a bigger cup, and a bigger cup, and a bigger cup. The Kiddush cups keep getting bigger. When I grew up, everybody had these tiny little cups. There was precisely 86 milliliters. And now, buy this Kiddush cup. It's 150 milliliters. Oh, that's, I think, maybe the Chazon Ish's shear, the measurement. In any case, now I went back to a regular cup, which is bigger than that. Not that's right, a whole bottle. In any case, you don't have to drink it all. The amount you have to drink is, and halacha is defined as a cheekful. Now everybody's cheek is a little bit of different size. Some people have a big mouth. Right, Michael, are you? Some people never shut up. We say they have a big mouth. But so really the halacha is that it depends on your cheek. But there is a standard. The standard assumption is that a cheekful is half that. Half a revi'it. So 86 divided by 2 is 43 milliliters. So you have to drink 43 milliliters of the liquid, of the wine or grape juice, 43 milliliters. It's not a lot. That's a half a revi'it. It's called a cheekful. Melo lugumav in Hebrew. One cheekful. And so if your cup holds exactly 86, it's very easy. You have to drink up to the halfway mark. And if your cup is bigger, so you have to sort of figure how much is a cheekful. How much is 20, so what would we say, 43. How much is 43? As long as you have 43, you don't have to drink the rest. There is a stringency. Some people say you should drink more than 43. You should drink at least half of the cup, whatever the size the cup is. If you have a very big size cup, you might have 403 milliliters before you get to the halfway mark. But so some people try to finish half of the cup, but you don't have to finish that. The halacha is a cheekful. A cheekful, 43 milliliters is the standard estimate of most people's cheeks. You want to have a little more, it's fine. Depending on what size your cup is, you can figure out how much is 43, and that's all. You don't have to drink it. Anybody who wearing the kiddush, 2 milliliters here, 5 milliliters there, 10 milliliters, everybody has a little bit. Altogether, the people have to consume 43 milliliters of this wine, or the kiddush wine. You don't have to drink it all yourself. I make kiddush on whiskey, I think I told you. On Shabbat morning, I make kiddush on whiskey. It's a sort of Hasidic custom.
But you say what?
I say shehakol.
But no, you say borei pri ha'agafen or borei pri?
Shehakol.
You say
Shehakol.
Oh, it's okay.
But and there is a custom. It's a little bit strange because usually shot glasses are small, and there's no 86 milliliters in the shot glass usually. And if you know. By the way, there's another custom. You should drink the whole cup of kiddush. Wow. That's what your son-in-law was doing. He's drinking the whole cup of kiddush himself. because that's an extra stringency. More than a cheekful and more than half of the cup, you should drink the whole cup. It's a beautiful thing. The cup is called a kos shel bracha. It's a cup of blessing. So you want to have all the blessings, so you drink it all. But you don't have to. You don't have to. And so when it comes to whiskey, the custom developed with a not really good halachic precedent, but there is rabbis that condone the practice to have a little shot of whiskey, even if it's not 86 milliliters. They say because whiskey is so strong and so concentrated, and people drink it that way, that's considered to be a kos shel bracha. It's considered to be a cup that's a blessing, even if you don't have the 86 milliliters. I'm machmir, and I fill up a cup that's exactly 86 milliliters of whiskey. I don't drink it all. I make sure to drink a cheekful. Cheekful between me and my wife and whoever's there at the kiddush. It's not a problem. But you don't have to do that. If people that usually make kiddush on whiskey, they don't have such a big cup of whiskey. They just have a shot glass, whatever it is. Shot glass is usually 30 milliliters. It's not. But there is such a custom. In any case, I do like to have my whiskey on Shabbat morning. It's part of my oneg Shabbat, my delight. In the Shabbat, you're supposed to have good foods that you like, take pleasure in the Shabbat. So that's my little, once a week, my little pleasure. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't drink during the week. I don't, even that, I have one shot, really, because between, me, myself, and the others, it's in the I don't end up drinking 43 milliliters of whiskey. Sometimes I do, but I can handle my drink. It's okay. And then you have to have, when you make kiddush, you have to have some mezonot. You have to have a meal. Talmud says, kiddush b'makom sa'uda. Sa'uda means a festive meal. So you have to you can't just make kiddush and then have some bubble gum or some bamba. Like some places in shul, they have a kiddush and they have some popcorn and some bisli. And if you want to eat there, you have to make sure you don't have to drink the wine. Somebody has to drink the wine, but it doesn't have to be you. But you have to have mezonot. Mezonot, the amount of mezonot constitutes a meal. A little meal, right? It doesn't have to be bread. Most places, but you have to have a piece of cake. You have to have a kazait. Kazait, better to have a kabitza, which is kazait is the measurement of an olive, and the measurement of an egg. Standard approach is that an egg is 2 olive sizes worth. Nowadays our eggs are a little bigger. There's different sized olives, of course, as well, but the standard is the size of an olive is enough to constitute a meal. And maybe better to have double that and have the size of an egg, if you can. And that's of mezonot. Mezonot meaning from the 5 grains, so cake or crackers, and then you could have as much herring as you want, or you can have as much ice cream and other sweet things, or whatever it is you like to eat. Vegetables, at a kiddush. Sort of like a mini meal, but in order for it to be kosher, according to halacha, there has to be some mezonot. There is a way out. Again, we're on the same topic of blessings, but it's okay. We're going to get back to the morning blessings in a minute, but there is a way out, and that's, for example, my daughter who cannot have any grain. She cannot have any cake, or cookies or crackers. It's dangerous to her health. So how could she have kiddush? The answer is that, obviously she has no choice. But some people are just a little sensitive. They're not actually forbidden from eating grain, but it's not good for them. They don't like to. So here, there is an opinion which says that if you have wine or grape juice, not whiskey, wine or grape juice specifically, they have the quality of also providing nourishment, because there's a lot of sugars in there, and there's wine is a special status of food, somewhat. And so, if you take a measure of a revi'it, 86 milliliters of wine, that is considered to be a meal. Now you should have 86 milliliters for the kiddush and another 86 milliliters for the meal. If you're making your meal out of wine and you're making the kiddush out of wine, so you have a lot of wine. That's what my daughter does every Friday night because she can't have bread. She doesn't have bread. She's not allowed to. So she has to make sure that she drinks enough wine. And we said for the kiddush, she doesn't have to have the full 86. She only has to have a cheekful. 43, right? So 43, and then she has to have the 86, the full measurement of her revi'it, to constitute her food, to constitute her halachic meal. And so 86 plus 43 is how much is that?
120, 129.
129. 129 milliliters. So many times she'll ask me, did I have enough? And I have to figure out, calculate, beware, how much is 129 milliliters of wine and grape juice. Usually you figure it out with time, with expertise. But that's if you're fulfilling the mitzvah of kiddush and the meal from the same wine, from wine as opposed to food. But most people that can have mezonot, something from the 5 grains, that's what you have to do. And so when you go to kiddush at someone's house, you want to eat, even before you have your official meal on Shabbat, you must make sure to have to hear the kiddush. You don't have to drink the kiddush, but you have to hear the kiddush that somebody drank from, and you have to eat a measurement of kazait, or better, a beitzah of mezonot or bread. If you have bread, that's fine as well. So have a kazait of bread. To have an olive's worth of bread or crackers or cake, or something that's mezonot, because that's considered to be a meal, halachic meal. It has many different definitions. Okay.
Does this apply to children as well?
Children, we try to educate them to do whatever we do. But obviously it depends on how old they are and how much they know. But as soon as they turn 12 or 13, they're going to have to follow all these laws. And so you should teach them that, when they make kiddush, what they have to drink, what they have to eat, how much, and for sure, yeah.
In my siddur is written when I do the bracha over wine on Havdalah, then that I should drink the bigger part of the cup. Is that right?
That's what I was telling you before, that this is a custom.
It's a
that
custom.
the basic minimum is a cheekful, right? Basic halacha. If you didn't drink a cheekful of the wine, or if anybody listening didn't add up cumulatively to have been drunk a cheekful, Havdalah is not kosher. But you personally don't have to drink all the cheekful, and even more than that, you don't have to drink half the cup of wine. There is a custom that whatever size the cup is, because it's called a cup of blessing, there is a custom that you should drink half of the cup. Now the truth is, there is also a custom that you should drink the whole cup, right? There's many different customs. When it becomes practical for Havdalah, the question is, what about the after bracha? After bracha, you only have to say the after bracha. What's the after bracha for wine?
It's like one of the 3 blessings. I don't know.
That's right. It's the main shalosh, bracha achrona, the main shalosh. It's called, like the 3 blessings. What's it called usually? Bracha achrona is in general, all the after blessings. What is it called? How does the bracha go after drinking wine? Well, what is it after you have cake? What's the bracha after having cake? What do we call it? No, after cake. Let me write it on the board for you, okay? Good. So the after bracha is called, I'll do it in English. Bracha acharona. Acharona. That means last. Acharonim, right? The period of the later commentaries. So bracha achrona is the after. The blessing after. Now there's a few blessings after. What are the blessings afterwards? Number one. Good. Borei nefashot. That's if you drink or eat something that is not one of the special foods. It doesn't have any special bracha. Like shahakol, or borei pri adama, or borei pri eitz. Those are all the simplest types of foods that don't have a special status, right? The special status is when you get to borei minei mezonot, or yayin, or special fruits. The special fruits that the land of Israel was praised for. Okay, so the second type of bracha, of course, the third after bracha is what we call it birkat, which means the bracha of mazon. Mazon is food. Or
Mazon means food?
Mazon means food, yes. Mazon means food. The birkat hamazon is the blessing over food. Mazon has the connotation of nutrition in it. You know what a nutritionist is called in modern Hebrew?
Mazon.
Tizuna, from mazon, yeah. Tizuna, yeah, nutrition, tizuna. A nutritionist is a tizunait.
Wait, where did ochel come out from?
The word ochel is not used here.
I know, but I mean...
It's also used in the Bible as well. Both are used. Mazon and ochel are both, yeah. Mazon is more nourishing food. And ochel is just food. So anyways, there's a third bracha. What's the middle one? It's called, what's it called? So it has two names. One name is, the more precise name is Me'ein Shalosh, which means like three. So what's the like three? Why is it called like three?
Because there's 3 blessings.
What 3 blessings?
For the bracha achrona.
So here, they're all bracha achrona. All these are bracha achrona. So use the correct terms. Where are there 3 blessings? The answer is that Birkat HaMazon consists of A, B, C, D. 4 blessings. First one is Hazan et Hakol. That's the ending. The second one is Al Haaretz. Haaretz. Ve'al. No. In the Birkat HaMazon, in the benching. Ve'al HaMazon. The same word again. HaMazon, right?
It's the pasuk.
We quote the pasuk right before the ending of the blessing. Should bless him for the land.
This is what you're now writing.
No, this is not. This is the bracha. This is the bracha. The bracha Baruch Atah Hashem at the end of the Birkat HaMazon. The third bracha is, how does it end? Baruch Atah Hashem. Bonei Yerushalayim. Bonei Berachamav Yerushalayim. Right? So the third bracha is about Jerusalem, and the fourth bracha is, it's called, right, I'm talking about Birkat HaMazon now. Grace after the meals. The fourth bracha is called Hatov v'Hameitiv. It says, Baruch Hashem Elokeinu Me'olam, Hakel Avinu Malkeinu Adirenu Bareinu Go'aleinu Asher Nikdash Yaakov, Reinu Yisrael Melech Hatov v'Hameitiv Lakol. It's a little bit later on in the bracha, but that's what it's called. Who is good and gives goodness. He is good and gives goodness. Okay? Tov, Meitiv. It's the same word. He is good and gives. So there's 4 blessings in the Birkat HaMazon. But you know what? There's a difference between the first 3 and the last. The first 3 blessings of Birkat HaMazon are the ones which are considered to be biblically mandated. Doraita. Michal, you have to learn this. These ones are biblically demanded, And then the rabbis at some point added rabbinic. They consider to have a fourth bracha. It's a rabbinic addition. And so when we say that bracha number 2 here is me'ein shalosh, like 3, what did they mean like 3?
Like first 3?
Like 3 of Birkat HaMazon. The 3 here
I like.
refers to these 3.
What is the first name over Hazan?
Hazan et hakol, yeah, Hazan et hakol. That's the end of the first bracha. Hazan et hakol. Hakol.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Hazan et hakol. So these 3 first blessings of the Birkat HaMazon are the original Birkat HaMazon, and that's why when we say a short, when I say like 3, you could say a shortened version of the 3. The 3 means Birkat HaMazon, the proper blessing which is biblical. When you have bread, you have 3 parts to the blessing. 3 blessings in Birkat HaMazon. Actually, there are 4, but we call it 3 because the 4th is only rabbinic. And so that when we say this second type of after bracha is called Me'ein Shalosh, we're saying it's a shortened version of the Birkat HaMazon. It's a shortened version of the Shalosh, which is the Birkat HaMazon.
That's the answer for my question. What I was thinking why we have it's so similar and why we have the Birkat HaMazon. We don't mention bread at all. Like not the like in.
Well, there's
it's more specific than in.
I see. Very interesting. So we have themes which are mentioned and developed in the full Birkat HaMazon, but the shortened version of the Me'ein Shalosh, it does have those themes, but much Shalosh. Me'ein Shalosh. Shortened version of the Birkat HaMazon. Now, why do I say that there's 2 names? Me'ein Shalosh has other names as well. Many times it's referred to as the Al HaMichya. Michya means sustenance. Another word for food, another word for nutrition is michya. That's the bracha, which refers to when we eat grains, when we have cake or cookies, the after bracha. It's the same thing. It's just a different name for it. But there is another version as well. And the other version is Al HaGefen. Al HaGefen, Val Pri HaGefen. And there's another version which is called Al Ha'etz. Why? Because it depends what you ate. If you ate bread, you say number 3, Birkat HaMazon. If you didn't have bread, let's say, and you only had cookies, you'd make Al Michya. If you had only wine, you say the version of Me'ein Shalosh, which speaks about the wine. And if you have special fruits, pomegranates or dates, which are mentioned in the Torah as a praise of Eretz Yisrael, and you don't have any bread, the after bracha is this version of the Me'ein Shalosh, the Al Ha'etz version. And if you have dates and wine and cake cookies, you say a special version of the Me'ein Shalosh with 3 parts that are added to it. You mention all 3. So there's 3 versions of the Me'ein Shalosh. The most popular, what do we eat mostly? Cake, cookies. Rarely eat pomegranate. How often do we have wine also? Usually have wine as part of the meal. So you have so Havdalah is a unique time when we have only wine without, you don't have to have a meal with Havdalah, as opposed to the Kiddush. And so you have an opportunity to make this version of the Me'ein Shalosh called Al HaGefen. You have to have enough wine. to be a measurement. The measurement is as a revi'it, 86 milliliters. You have to have 86 milliliters. So to fulfill the Havdalah, you just have to have a cheekful, 43, right? And you don't have to finish the cup. It's in the custom to finish the cup. It's a custom to finish half the cup, but you don't have to. But what about the after bracha? So if you don't have 86 milliliters, you can't make the after bracha, which is okay, but it's not ideal. After you eat, you should make a bracha. If you don't have the measurement, you don't make the bracha. So many people say, I want to be able to make the after bracha, after the Havdalah, so they force themselves to drink at least 86 milliliters of the wine or the grape juice. So then, right after Havdalah, you'll say the after bracha. The version of Mein Shalosh, that's called Al Hagefen. Is that clear? A lot of information at once. Let me test you. Yisrael, how many types of after brachot are there? How many types? Bracha achrona. What does that mean? Blessings after the food. How many types are there? How many kinds? How many forms are there? We have a list here. So there's 3 types. One type is called Borei Nefashot, the other type is called Mein Shalosh, and the third type is called Birkat HaMazon. Okay? So 3 different. How do you know which one to say? Depends on what you eat. Right? If you have just a drink or have a fruit, a regular fruit, an apple, an orange, or you have some vegetables, the after bracha is Borei Nefashot. Ravid. Give me another name for the Me'ein Shalosh. Me'ein Shalosh. There's another name for it. Me'ein Shalosh means it's a shortened version of the 3, which is a shortened form of the Birkat HaMazon. Birkat HaMazon is called 3. So what's another name for the Me'ein Shalosh? Many times, it's called Al HaMechiyah. You can't see. Do you want to come closer? You want to?
The other name for Mein Shalosh?
Al HaMechiyah. But the reason why it's imprecise is because sometimes you don't say Al HaMechiyah. If you only had wine, you say Al HaGefen. It's the entire text is the same, except for that one line. I'll show you inside.
You can take a siddur?
Yeah, well, let's all take a siddur. Give out a siddur to everybody, and I'll show you inside.
Sorry, Rav, just now after Havdalah, we said Al Hagafen.
Yeah. Yeah. What page you got there for us? Give us Sidurim. Yeah. Yeah. You have a question? Yeah? Amos?
What is the Al-Hamekeh Al-Kalkala? What is the Kalkala?
It's the continuation of the blessing. Some people will extend it.
Isn't that the pattern of the blessing?
Well, it is. At the beginning it is. The end, at the beginning it is. The end is debated. Turn to page.
I wasn't here, I gave everyone. 1057?
Yeah, actually, where I want you to look at the Al HaMechiyah, you'll find it on 1072. If you look in the Hebrew, if you can read the Hebrew, it says Bracha Me'ein Shalosh on page 1073, about halfway down the page. But in English it says blessing after food, Al HaMechiyah. What? They didn't translate it properly. Right? They didn't say the Hebrew. It should have said Me'ein Shalosh, like it says in the Hebrew. Why? Because there's 2 names for the same bracha. Sometimes, imprecisely, we refer to this bracha. This is bracha number 2 we're talking about. It's called the Me'ein Shalosh. Sometimes people refer to it as Al HaMechiyah. Why? Because let's start. Al HaMechiyah means nourishment. So, Baruch, blessed are you, Lord, our God, our King of the universe, for the nourishment. You see the word for the nourishment? On page 1072.
Yes.
And but that It depends.
Maar
It's
zo-
only if you had grain products. If you had wine or grape juice, you say for the vine, for the fruit of the vine. And if you only had grapes, figs, or olives, you say not for the nourishment. You say for the tree. That's the al ha'etz, right? Al ha'etz, al ha'gefen, or al ha'michya, nourishment.
And mefushal, what if when it's cooked the wine?
Mevushal, yeah. What
You
about
don't
it?
say the shakor, right?
No.
Also,
Still, bori priagafen, of course.
and if it's grape juice, it's mefushal.
Still, bori priagafen.
No.
Yeah.
But I can touch it, right? If it's mefushal.
Yes. Enjoy.
Rabbi, but for Birkat Hamazon, after we say the Birkat Hamazon, do we still say
No.
Al Hagafen?
No. Covers everything. Unless what happens is sometimes people make the Birkat Hamazon with a cup of wine. And then they drink the cup of wine after the Birkat Hamazon. So then, that's like Havdalah. You have to make the after bracha after Havdalah. You have to make the bracha after you drink the cup of wine after the meal. Right? So that's why you might see people saying the Al HaGefen if they said the Birkat Hamazon with holding a cup of wine. There is such a custom. Some people only do it when there's 10 people present, when there's a minyan. But really, with a cup of wine, you make the person who's leading the Birkat Hamazon, he holds a cup of wine, and at the end, when he finishes the entire Birkat Hamazon, he says Borei Pri Hagafen. It's also called a kos shel bracha, cup of blessing.
And he drink it.
And he drinks it.
And in which groups is that more like in Sahara?
No, it's not a difference between Sephardi and Ashkenazi. Maybe it's a difference between ignorant people and people who are more knowledgeable. But
Okay.
there is a custom that the common custom is you don't do it unless there's 10 people. There's who to rely on if you want to do that.
Why we do that? What is the reason?
Oh, it's an ancient custom to bless Hashem with a cup of wine. A cup of wine adds stature, gravitas, it gets importance to the blessing. See, the blessing after the meals is itself a very important event. It's a mitzvah. Right? It's four full blessings, 4 A, B, C, D, 4 parts to the Birkat Hamazon. It's not just 1 or 2 lines. It's a mitzvah. So the only bracha from the Torah, it's a bracha that's biblically, it says it in the Torah, you should eat and be satisfied and thank Hashem. And so to give importance to the blessing after the meal, to the Birkat Hamazon, we use a cup of wine. And then you have to drink the cup of wine. And then you have to say the after bracha after the cup of wine. That's the Al HaGefen that we mentioned. Okay? Another question, yeah.
When we finish the 9 shalosh and we have all 3.
Let's look again and to the end. So turn the page. 1073, 1074 now. Turn the page.
We say that, for example, Be'al HaMechia, Be'al Pri HaGefen, Be'al HaPerot, and then say bracha.
Yes. Yes.
We do this way, and then we say again.
Baruch Atah Hashem. You have it here. It's on the page. No, you don't say Aretz twice. You just say Al Aretz, Al Mechia, Ve'al Pri Hagafen. That's it.
We don't do like 3 brachot.
It's interesting. They don't add in the one for the fruit.
Yeah, it's in the middle. It's in the middle.
I know, but not in the end. Like if you do, they have here. What if you eat both together? If you eat grain products and wine, that's the last line. But it doesn't say what if you eat grain products and wine and fruit. I think you would say all 3. Although the text is not in front of you, I think you would say all 3. I have to check why they didn't do that. Maybe it's not so common that you have all 3.
So we say fruit first, then grain and wine.
No, you start with grain, and then geffen, and then fruit. Yeah, as it is here, right to left.
Okay.
That's and then of course, if it's a special day, you add in one of those lines above for Rosh Chodesh, for Shabbat.
What what is this after grain product but not the bread and wine for grape juice? We say
But not bread or matzah, it says. Not bread or matzah, because bread or matzah, you're going to be saying the full, number 3, Birkat HaMazon.
But yeah, there is written ve'al ha'mechia ve'al pri ha'kafen.
Yeah, what about it? You're saying both. Michia, because you had grain products, cake,
Yes,
cookies,
logic, but
and geffen for the wine that you drank.
But why we have that? I don't know.
It gives you an option of either 1 or 2 or 3. Depends what you ate. What if you had both? So you say at the end, both, and at the beginning, you add in both versions. Al hamichya ve'al hagefen. And the question you're asking, why doesn't it have all 3? It doesn't, for some reason, they didn't print it that way. They only printed what happens if you do 2 together. And they said, you put the 2 together. Why not put the 3 together? That's your question. I understand. Okay? Okay. All right. Last question. Not the last question, but hopefully the first question. We're going to open up the book. We have time. We're going to open it up. A question. Yes, Ravid.
How much bread would you need to eat to say the Katamazon?
An olive-sized piece of bread.
Because I heard you just have a little bit of bread. It's not enough.
Correct. It has to be the size of an olive.
So how much?
Most people assume that 1 slice of bread is the size of an olive. Depends on the bread, the size of an olive, and if you have 2 slices of bread, that's the size of an egg, which is a larger shear. But, it's interesting. Biblically, it says, the pasuk we've quoted before, it says it in the benching, like you said. We say, the pasuk says, you shall eat and be satisfied, and you shall bless the Lord who gave you the land, right? So, only if you are satisfied do you have to biblically make the Birkat HaMazon. But the Jewish people took it upon themselves, even if I'm not fully satisfied. If I eat a measurement of the size of an olive, the rabbi said, you must say the Birkat HaMazon. And the sages say that there's a midrash that says, we turn to Hashem and ask Him for forgiveness. We ask Him to help us out. And the angels complain. And they said, why should you help out the Jews? A bunch of good-for-nothings. They're not keeping your Torah. They're not keeping your mitzvot. Why do you help them so much? And the Midrash answers, God answers in the name. The Midrash quotes, the sentiment is, look how precious my people are. I told them to bless me only if they are satisfied. And they took it upon themselves to bless me even if they have a small measurement the size of an olive. So I see that they're going over and above what they're obliged to do, what they're obligated to do. So me too, Hashem says, I'm also going to be good with them, even though they don't deserve it, even though it's beyond what they deserve, and Hashem will treat us in the same magnanimous way, because we took it upon ourselves to say the Birkat HaMazon, even if you had such a small measurement, the size of an olive. Even though biblically, that doesn't satisfy you maybe, the size of an olive. You wouldn't have to make any bracha achrona. But this is the halacha that we are called upon by our sages, that if you have the bread the size of an olive, you must say the full Birkat HaMazon. Number 3.
Because I understood, someone told me in the past, when we have Yom Shishi, we have the Kiddush, we have the moment of Hamotzi, and they gave me a little piece of bread to say the Hamotzi, and after this I didn't eat any more bread. And they told me that it's not okay to say the Birkat HaMazon.
They're correct. They're correct. You have to have at least a kazait. Kazait's not that much, 1 slice, but you do have to eat 1 slice. And it's best to eat that slice right away, not for dessert. Have it right after you say the hamotzi. You have a full kazait, a full measurement of an olive. It's not so big, but you should not just have 1 bite. 1 bite of bread and then put it aside. you get into trouble. You can't really say the Birkat Hamazon. They were correct.
Yeah.
Usually I tell you what you hear is wrong, but this time they were right.
Okay, another question. Shabbat morning, I'm going to the Knesset. I stay there for having kiddush, and after the bracha of the wine, we have something to eat, crackers and all this kind of stuff. If I'm right, you said when I said the bracha of the wine, I don't need to say the brachot about all these other things.
Liquids, only for other
only
drinks,
Because I'm used, when we have the kiddush in shul, we have the bracha about the wine, and then we're starting with mezunot and etz and adama.
Good, you should.
And we say the.
But if you have a soft drink after you've had wine for kiddush, you don't make the shahako on the soft drink. That's all.
Okay.
Liquids.
Okay. Last question. Suppose I have kiddush, shishi in the evening. I have some guests, and under the guests I go anim.
Kohanim.
Goyim,
non-Jews.
Yes, not
Non-Jews. Okay.
Do they need to join?
They're not obligated by the mitzvah of the Torah.
Is it okay when they're here?
I don't see why not. They are allowed to and they should be blessing Hashem and being thankful to Hashem. Even non-Jews are supposed to be blessing Hashem. I hope they believe in the one God, but it'd be a problem if they started to do some kind of a Christian ritual. That would be a problem.
Yeah.
Not so good. But if they blessing the true one God, it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
There's a siddur that we have in the library for non-Jews, for Noachites. A siddur, yes, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. They took out the references to the God of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because if you're not Jewish, they're not your forefathers. So you can't say that line. But the other lines of Hashem who created the world, you can say. Hashem, gives us sustenance. They can say that. So there's no problem for them listening in and being respectful. They shouldn't be worshiping other gods at your table. That's not so good.
I asked this because we had this question before. When I'm a guest in the home of my son-in-law, just imagine he's Christian.
Okay.
And after the meal, he's going to pray his things. And I'm sitting there. But then I like to go outside the room because. Sure.
When somebody is doing a religious ritual, which is a Christian religious ritual, we should not participate. And
it's also not good to hear. We need to
probably
go outside.
Not right. Correct. We should stay away. If that's not offensive, to them, but you should not participate in the ritual. If you are assuming you ate food that was kosher food, assuming that you ate kosher food, you have an obligation to say your blessing after the meal, one of these three bracha achronaz, and you can do that even in his home. You're praying to Hashem, and that's fine. That's what you should do.
Okay, thank you.
You can't tell him what to do. He'll say his grace, whatever it is he says. You can't tell him what to do, usually.
Can you say someone in your house, and please don't do that in my house? Can you say that?
It depends on your relationship.
Yes.
Depends on your relationship.
Why you find them then?
Right. Well, I think.
Well, it was strange, like his thing, and like he's a Christian.
Listen, it's your house. You can make demands on people. If you say, I don't want to have any Christian rituals in my house. You can please ask them. Please don't wear your cross here. For example, it depends on your relationship.
Okay.
If they're going to get it so offended, I had once. I was officiating at a wedding, a Jewish chuppah, but the father of the Kala, believe, was not Jewish. Not only was he not Jewish, he was a priest. And so they asked me, can my father stand with me under the chuppah, even though he's a Christian priest? And I said, as long as he doesn't wear a cross, as long as he doesn't openly, or maybe wear a collar, he can stand there. And that's what happened. That's what he did. I knew he was a priest. And more than once, I've had students whose parents are priests or pastors, and they you can stand under the chuppah. We don't have to hate non-Jews.
No.
And but for them to have, I just asked that they shouldn't have the outward showing of their idol, whatever it is that they. Everybody has a different attitude to the cross, but whatever it is, that was I felt inappropriate, which is fine. They weren't looking to do a Christian ritual. They just
I want to ask you another question. It's important for me. Suppose I have some guests on Friday evening, and there are people who are not religious, and maybe also not Jewish. And I'm used to ask them, when we come to the table for all the things what we do, to wear a kippah. I'm going too far if I ask them to do that?
I think it's quite common. It's not too far.
Because it's a holy moment when we say the
Right,
Lord.
right.
And I want my guests also, when they are not religious, even when they are not Jewish, to wear a kippah.
It really depends on your relationship. We mentioned before that it is the custom to wear a kippah in the synagogue, right? And if somebody comes in and he doesn't have a kippah, so I wouldn't throw stones, but I would take a kippah and go over to him and say, listen, you're in a holy place. It's quite common, courtesy. At the kotel, they give out a kippah, right? Because it's a sign of respect when you enter a place of worship that you should have a kippah. Now, your home is not a synagogue, but you want it to be. You want it to be a home, a place of religious worship. And so it makes sense when you're making the kiddush or when you're doing the religious ritual, it would be respectful of them to put on a kippah. Many people know that already, and they in the army it's quite common, or when you go to a wedding, people that are secular, they don't wear a kippah usually. The rabbi starts to make the bracha. They look around they don't have a kippah. Many times you see they take a tissue and put it on their head. You seen that?
Yes.
You seen that? Because they know they're supposed to cover their heads. There's some people that don't even know that. They don't cover their heads because they were never taught that this is the way to show respect by covering your head. So you can teach them if you like, but it depends on your relationship. You can tell them to wear a kippah in your home for the kiddush if you like. But again, it's not an obligation in shul. It's not an obligation at a wedding. It's not an obligation. It's a sign of respect. It's a good thing to show respect for religion. And so if you have the relationship where they won't be offended or they won't feel that you're being put upon, by all means, why not? Give them a kippah and say, we're doing a religious ritual now. We're saying that we're blessing Hashem. Please, our custom is that we cover our heads while we're saying a blessing to Hashem. And most people will say, okay, I'll cover my head for a few minutes, and then when, but some people would say, sorry, I don't do that. I wouldn't get into a fight over it.
No, of course not.
Because it's not an obligation. It's not an obligation, so you don't, but
it's the same for the women, they need to cover
their sleeves, yeah. Mm-hmm. It's similar. There's maybe even more. But again, telling other people what to wear can be very tricky business. People can get offended, they feel put upon, and embarrassed. That's right. So you have to be aware of the situation, the social situation. Let's do a little bit of the laws of morning blessings. We sort of been talking about the food, the bracha achrona.
We finished the breakfast. Now we go.
We finished breakfast. We started with bracha rishona, right? What does achrona mean? After. What does a rishona means? The bracha before. Rishonim is the earlier, before commentaries, and achronim are the later commentaries. So bracha rishona is the blessing before. The first blessing, right? The first and the last. The first blessing, we said, what did we talk about? Mezonot for barley soup and oats. And then we started talking about the bracha achrona after. Al hagefen, al hamichya, mein shalosh. We explained what those are. Then we talked about the laws of Birkat HaMazon. And now we're going to go to the morning blessings. Even if you don't eat, the sages instituted every day, say these blessings. Page 116. Okay, Stephen, will you read for us?
Yes.
Number 2.
The orders of the morning blessing. As we have learned, the original institution of the Kakamim was to bless and give thanks for each and every act
Here.
immediately upon deriving pleasure from it. In other words, as a person wakes from his sleep, he thanks Hashem for the soul he blessed within him and said, Elohai, Neshama. As he opened his eyes, he recited, Okea Ivrim. As he stretched his limbs, he recited, Mate Asurim, and so on with all the blessings in the matters. However, today the custom has changed, and usually all the Birkat HaShaka are recited consecutively. One may wonder why the custom changed, for it is obviously more appropriate to thank Hashem immediately when the pleasure is received. In that way, the process of arising from one's sleep attains profound significance, as the blessing of thanks to Hashem accompany each and every stage of waking. Indeed, the Ramban ruled that all Birkat HaShaka must be recited exactly as mentioned in the Talmud. Each barakah in its appropriate time. There are some Yemenite who are accustomed to following his ruling even today. However, the widespread custom is to recite all Birkat HaShaka at once, either in synagogue or at home after relieving oneself and getting dressed. There are few reasons for this. First, the Kakamim established that the Kazan recite Birkat HaShaka out loud in synagogue, so that the uneducated who do not know them by heart may fulfill their obligations as well. Also, even those who do know the blessing by heart may forget a blessing in the disorientation of waking, while if they recite them from the Siddur in synagogue, they will remember to say them all. Further, we want to enhance the mitzvah and recite Birkat HaShaka in the most respectful way, with clean hands and while properly dressed, and therefore we delay the recital of the barakot until after the preparations for prayers are finished. This is in Shulchan Aruch 46:2. Moreover, there are people who find it is very difficult to concentrate immediately upon waking up, and only after they dress and wash their faces they are able to recite Birkat HaShaka with a kavanah, said Ahayim.
It's interesting. Seder Hayom, the book he quotes at the end, that is the first source we have for the poem called Modeh. We spoke about it the other day, and I said, I don't know where that's from. So I looked it up afterwards, and I found that it's a fascinating book that goes through teaching you what you do every single day. And that's the first, it's not in the Talmud, and it's not in the codes. It appears first in this book called Seder Hayom, or the Menachem HaMachiri, or something like that. And he quotes the Modeh, he says you should say Modeh when you wake up. And from there, it's spread, and now everybody knows it, and everybody, that's the most popular prayer in the world. They teach the children, it's very, very common. Modeh. Seder Hayom, that's the name of the book. I think it's from the 16th century in Tzfat. He was a Kabbalist in the 16th century in Tzfat. And he that's the first place we find this sentence, Modeh. But anyways, the common custom is we recite Birkot HaShachar all together after we're already dressed and we're in shul and properly awake and with clean hands and so forth, not as we do the activities.
Why they don't mention here the Modi?
We did already. We spoke about it in a previous chapter. Yeah. Okay, next. Let's go on. Skip to the next paragraph, This is a common question. What happens? 18, section 5. Section 5. Lechatchila, all the blessings should be recited as close as to Alot HaShachar. Therefore, one who gets up before Alot HaShachar in order to learn Torah, to work, or for any other purpose, must recite Birkat HaShachar immediately upon waking up. However, Birkat HaShachar may not be recited before Chatzot, before Halachit midnight. Therefore, a person who wakes up before Chatzot must wait until Chatzot, midnight, to recite Birkat HaShachar. If he recites them before that time, does not fulfill his obligation. Now, one who wakes up after Chatzot for a few hours and plans on returning to sleep until the time to recite Shacharit, such as a soldier who gets up after Chatzot for guard duty and goes back to sleep, must say Birkat HaShachar after his main waking. If, in his opinion, his initial waking is the main one, he considers any sleep after that to be a nap. In the middle of the day, he must recite them after the first sleep. If his second rising is his main one, he must recite them after the second rising. However, the Kabbalistic custom is that as long as the first rising is after Chatzot, he must say Birkot HaShachar after the first rising. If he did not say them after the first rising, then he must say them after the second. It is the opinion of most poskim that the law regarding Birkot HaTorah is similar to the rule for blessings recited upon the performance of mitzvot. Therefore, one must recite them every time he wakes up from a regular sleep at night. Still, there are those who have the custom to recite them only after the first rising. See the laws of Birkat HaTorah in chapter 10. So we're going to get in the next chapter to more details about the laws of the blessings on the Torah. But the laws of Birkot HaShachar is, bottom line is, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you, what did I speak about last Shabbat? Shabbat comes in so early.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you go to sleep early.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe you wake up early. If you go to sleep at 9 o'clock already, you finish with the meal. And then you wake up at 3 a.m. And then you can learn. You can learn Torah. But you can't have a Shacharit until 5 a.m., 5:30. So if you're not planning to go back to sleep, you should say all of the Birkot HaShachar in the morning when at 3 a.m. when you wake up, even though it's not yet morning. The sages instituted these blessings should be cited once a day. When your primary waking up for the day is, it happens to be early, say them early. That's his bottom line. If you're just waking up and going back to sleep, so then don't recite them until you get up, go back to sleep, and then you get up for the main waking of the day. That's when you recite the Birkot HaShachar. Yes, Ravid.
I have this question because when I sleep in the night,
Amidah is
I
a
don't
separate
sleep
thing. That's
all the night very good.
Okay.
I have this very much when I wake up in the middle of the night. I'm going to the Shirotim, and after this I cannot sleep again. Sometimes it takes hours.
But you're trying to.
I try.
You would like to.
Yeah.
So then you shouldn't say the Birkat HaShachar until you are actually up and you think this is your waking for the day.
Because
if you're planning, trying to go back to sleep, so then you shouldn't say the Birkat HaShachar.
What I do, I say this Shema Yisrael, sometimes 3 times. Like
Could be
sleep.
helpful to get you to sleep, and it gives you protection in your sleep. It's never a bad thing to say the Shema Yisrael.
What about the people who are working in shifts?
Same thing, exactly like we were saying.
Exactly
Yeah,
the
same thing. If they wake up after Chatzot, after midnight for their shift, if that's their primary way, if they're not going to be going back to sleep before daybreak, then they should say Birkat HaShachar right away.
When you have a night shift, you start at 11 o'clock in the evening, like my wife, and she's coming home next morning about 8 o'clock. We already have daylight and everything.
So after Chatzot, she should find the time to say the Birkat HaShachar. Yeah. After Chatzot, after midnight. Excuse me. Yes, Amos, you had a question, last question for
Yeah, the Birkot HaShachar are finishing where?
Amavir sheina me'inai u'tnuma me'afapai. Is the last one. Baruch Ata Hashem HaGomer Chasadim Tovim La'amo Yisrael. There's a list of 15 in a row,
Yeah.
and the last one is the last one of
With the
Birkot
bracha.
HaShachar. Yeah. Last
Okay.
Baruch Ata Hashem at the end of the list
Then
of
we do
15.
this, and we don't do the continuation.
Correct.
Of Shacharit.
Until you
Later.
pray Shacharit.
Till Shema, you can say when the sun is
Later.
Later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then
Sometimes a good thing to say the Shema before sunrise. That's ideal, but usually we say the rest.
It's isn't it, to do Shema Esra if it's not the...
You said Shema now. We
yeah,
didn't.
I take the whole package, Shema, this...
So each part has its own rules of when you should say them.
Yeah, yeah.
You shouldn't be praying the Amidah before sunrise.
Yeah.
But the Shema you should be saying before sunrise.
You could.
You could and you should.
You should.
If you can. If you're up early enough, you should try to say the Shema before the sunrise. It's a good thing.
I wake up in the night.
Got it. Tov, we covered good laws of blessings. And may we receive